Hello, political candidates. Your campaign's website domain is an important factor in your website's SEO. It's crucial for your campaign website to include your first and last name. It gives AI models like ChatGPT an authoritative source of truth to pull from, helping to prevent the AI from hallucinating or picking up outdated information from third-party blogs or partisan attacks. So visit name.com today and buy your personalized .vote website address. Let AI be your friend. Your potential voters will thank you.
Sam and I are always talking about being prepared, whether it's hurricanes in Florida, earthquakes in California, flooding in Arizona, or supply chain disruptions.
Exactly, Chuck. When pharmacies shut down, it does not matter how tough you are, you still need access to critical medicine.
That's why we trust Jace Medical. The Jace case comes with 5 life-saving antibiotics and key over-the-counter meds, so you're covered when things get disrupted.
And Jace goes beyond just the Jace case. They also offer first aid kits, daily prescriptions, and long-term nutrition with Jace Pantry. Don't wait for the next hurricane warning or natural disaster. Take control of your health and peace of mind today.
Visit jace.com and use code FUTURE at checkout for $10 off your order. That's FUTURE at JASE.com. To run a successful business, you need one thing: customers. And how do you get customers? You get them through advertising. You get them through lead generation. But what happens if the leads don't exist or they don't have valid contact information? This is a familiar story all businesses deal with. Then they call these leads who don't exist, or they're bad numbers, or they're not in their service area. Argus 101 verifies every lead before your team picks up the phone. It's a real person in your area and a neighborhood that matches your ideal customer. Your team only calls people worth calling, thus saving you money. Free trial at argus101.com. That's ARGUS101.com. Help your business expand today. Go to argus101.com. ARGUS101.com.
Welcome to Breaking Battlegrounds with your host, Sam Stone. Chuck Warren is out of the studio today. I think he and I are switching shifts lately, but our first guest up today is someone I am very excited to talk to. Dr. Keith Ablow is the co-founder of Help22.org, New York Times bestselling author, frequent speaker, and guest on psychological topics across the national media spectrum, former Fox News contributor. And he also runs paintopower.com, his counseling and life coaching platform dedicated to personal and organizational empowerment. Dr. Ablow, welcome to Breaking Battlegrounds.
Hey, thanks for having me, man. Good to see you, Sam.
Absolutely. Hey, one of the things you caught our attention recently, and you've had our attention in the past, but you caught it recently with a great article you have out, or how AI threatens to destroy the core self and how to fight back. Tell people what the premise is, because I think this is just essential right now. We're in this moment when the world is changing at an extraordinary, perhaps unprecedented rate, and people are really under a lot of psychological pressure. So tell us what you're seeing there, what's going on, and how people can start to protect themselves.
Absolutely. Listen, I think what's happening is as these large language models like ChatGPT and Claude get even more accelerated, people are turning to them, and in doing so, they're getting emptied out. What do I mean by that? I mean that we're ceding to these models, to these tools, our own creative impulses, things that really require some flexing to maintain them. So you have people saying, hey, I'll let it do my writing for me. I'll let it do my thinking for me. It's going to organize my project for me. I'll just give it some prompts. And the trouble with that, I know that people are going to use it. We have this Achilles heel. We use new technologies no matter what. Right? But
yeah, we've adopted a lot of things that haven't helped us, and frankly have hurt us dramatically over the years.
And so it's so important to say, well, what am I going to do to defend myself against the fact that it's no different when you let one of these tools, ChatGPT or another AI system, think for you and create work for you. You will get flabby intellectually and in terms of your motivation. It just can't not be the case. It's the same as if you said to someone, hey, you know what I think we'll do for you, because it takes time to go to the gym? We're sending someone else. you'd be like, well, I don't see how that's going to help me with my muscle strength and my fitness and my longevity. Same thing here. We've lost the ability to navigate to some extent because of GPS in cars. I really believe that. I think if you ask people for directions, they're that much less able to give them because we've been following the machine. We let the machine do it. Now, though, we're going to let the machine do everything.
Yeah, boy. So Brennan is sitting here nodding because she's probably in that camp.
I'm guilty. I've literally the last month I've actually realized that if my phone something happens to it, I'm not going to be able to get around. So I've been actually trying to drive without my GPS because you're literally just following a blue line nonstop. You don't know where you're going.
Yes.
And I actually established the thing. I love driving, so I'm kind of an oddball on this, right? But I established a policy for myself when these systems came out that I won't use them till I'm lost. I'll look at the map and try to just remember my way through it. But I ran into a kid. This was a few months ago. I was coming out of a gas station, and I ran into this kid, and he's asking directions back to Arizona State University here in Phoenix. And it's really easy, right? It's make a right on this road, go down to the first freeway, make a right, take that to Mill Avenue, make a right, you're there. He could not follow those directions.
All right. And listen, what's happening, whether you use the AI yourself as a primary resource to create work or to learn about the world or to ask it advice, that's one question. But we're all digesting this. I mean, I get routinely from people in companies to which I consult long memos. They might be 8 or 10 pages single spaced, looking at an issue. Now I know that those were generated by AI and dashed off in a minute. And I know the person who sent it to me probably didn't read it even. So what are we doing? We're recycling content from AI systems, leading to a potential kind of groupthink. So number one, we're not maintaining our intellectual musculature or our empathetic musculature, by the way, because people are turning to this for advice. But beyond that, we're literally recycling groupthink. What a great instrument for any entity that wants control of humans to say, well, they tend to think for themselves, these humans. Got to stop that. Let's just let them go to the well. The well will think for them. And soon enough, they won't be able to do it anymore without the machine. They already, people generally now, a lot of people doubt themselves now because they want to run everything through an AI system. Well, let me check. I'll run my email through there. Let me check what I just wrote. I'll put it through there. Generally, by the way, often they're not checking. They're just having it do the writing. But nonetheless, it leads to a kind of lack of conviction, lack of confidence in one's own brain power and mind. That's devastating. This is the biggest pandemic we've ever faced. Happens to be one that's technological, but it's more dangerous by a lot than COVID ever was, because not only is it incredibly pathological, but everybody wants to be infected.
That's an incredible statement.
Everybody wants to be infected. And it turns out, I think human beings have an Achilles heel. We think it's cute. We think it's clever. Even my mom, when she was still with us and in her late 80s, thought the robot at the local Chinese restaurant that brought you the food was cute. Isn't that great? Well, yes and no. I mean, it's taking a bit of a job. And secondly, when you say thank you, you're basically psychotic. Fix their problem. Who are you thanking? Right? But people are loath not to thank and be nice to ChatGPT. Why? Well, because they know somewhere deep inside them, number one, we have this Achilles heel, so we relate to technology as though it's not artificial. And secondly, people have a sneaking suspicion. What if this system didn't like me?
Right. Well, I will put that one out there, because if the Waymo cyber taxis ever become sentient, they will kill me. They will absolutely kill me for what I have done to them on the road over the last 2 years. I mean, so yeah.
They're mad at you, but you should be mad at them, because there aren't that many pockets of autonomy left in the world. Thankfully, America, has more of it still than many countries. But the bottom line is we're going to get to a time when people feel like, well, maybe I don't need a vehicle. Maybe it doesn't have to go under its own power like fuel that burns. Maybe I just call one up when I need it, or I rent mine out the rest of the time because it's self-driving. Self-driving is not driving. You're not the one with direction. You're not the one conveying yourself people, your places. You're a passive passenger. And we ought to be worried, like passivity is in store for us in a wholesale way through AI. It's not making us stronger.
I agree 100%. I wonder, in sticking with the driving model, like I'm probably my insurance company's least favorite guy, because when I get a car, I turn off most of the electronic safeties, like rear cross path detection and blind spot monitoring is all I'll leave on, right?
Excellent.
But you see these accidents. It doesn't seem like accidents are being reduced by all these technologies out there. It's just that people are trading their accidents for the machine causing accidents.
I think that that's true. And there's an over-reliance on the technology that's putting us to sleep individually and collectively. Literally, sometimes I'm sure people fall asleep. Vehicles are self-driving, but we're being put psychologically to sleep. And it's becoming more and more important, by the way, to find yourself and really define who you are as a person and what you really believe, because that's under siege. And we should think of it that way. What is your immunization going to look like? Are you going to get into psychotherapy? Are you going to start meditating? Are you going to get out in nature? Are you going to get a dog? What are you going to do to ground you in reality and stay in yourself? First, finding it is a high thing to do anyhow. Becoming the person you were meant to be from all time, it's, I think, one of the best things you can do with your time and your effort.
How many people do you think really achieve that?
I think that it's a quest. It's the quest of a lifetime. I think too few people try, and a large proportion of those who try can get a significant part of the way there. Now, how do they do that? It's a question of narrative. Most of us live our lives, I like to say, as they open a novel to page 111, you read to page 269. So you read 111 to 269, and someone says, hey, do you want to finish writing the book? You're like, well, wait, I kind of would like to know what's in those 110 pages I didn't read, because I may do things that are completely out of character in the last chapters of the book. And also I may trip over myself because maybe there are weaknesses back there that I could easily deal with if I knew about them, but I don't. Now, it doesn't take that long as long as you're with a determined therapist or life coach or whatever it might be to do that work, to bring back the pages that have been forgotten or run away from, because human beings have this tendency, we tend to run from the things that were distressing to us, but we remember them like with the hearts of an 11-year-old or 9-year-old or 14-year-old. These things aren't threats anymore, but they feel like it. So we tend to shut the door and say, I don't want to look at that, the relationships that were suboptimal for me, or the traumas I experienced, the losses I went through. No, you do want to look at that, because if you're on the run from it, believe me, you're going to run to more of the same, because that's how humans work. We tend to go back to the same things until we see them for what they were and decide on other paths.
We are awfully good at repeating our mistakes. Dr. Keith Ablow, we're going to be coming back with more from him here in just a minute, folks, so stay tuned for that. If you're not already, make sure you go to breakingbattlegrounds.vote, get signed up for our podcast. We're on Substack, Spotify, Apple Podcast, everywhere you go. We're there. Make sure you sign up. if you like this show, give us a nice 5-star rating, share it with some friends, and be sure to check out those segments because you don't want to miss Bee's Corner. She's got good stuff here every week. Lots of great content coming right back here in just one moment. All right, welcome back to Breaking Battlegrounds. We're continuing our interview with Dr. Keith Ablow here in just a moment, folks. But first, there is 45 billion with a B, of distressed private student debt, private student loans in this country that almost nobody will refinance. Why refi is different. They refinance distressed or defaulted private student loans. They provide you with a custom loan payment based on your ability to pay. The maximum interest rate is 6%. I mean, 6% in this environment right now is extraordinary. They can ensure affordability and financial relief. So when the payment on your distressed or defaulted private student loan is so big that you can't ever get ahead in your finances, give YRefi a call. They're going to be able to help you. Give them a ring, 877-400-9989. It's 877-400-9989, or go to investYRefi.com and give them a call today. They will absolutely be able to help you out. All right, continuing on with our interview now with Dr. Ablow. Doctor, when we went to break, we were talking a lot about AI and the impact on that and how people really need to start taking steps to protect themselves, their core self, from all of these digital intrusions. But there's been a lot of other psychological intrusions people have been under lately. I mean, people, I think, in this country and around the world, especially in the Western world, have kind of been insane the last few years. You've got COVID, this sort of political angst and rage. You have it being, families are being torn apart, friendships are being torn apart. What are you seeing there, and what do people need to do to bring themselves back from that?
Well, I think people are at a great distance from the truth, and unfortunately, we've been fed all kinds of untruths that we're encouraged to believe, like countries don't need borders. Why do you need that? Listen, gender, it's not clear what gender you're born when you're born. Okay.
Yeah, right.
Okay. Or we're told that Donald Trump is not successful. He's not a successful person. He's a failure. Wait, he's a multi-billionaire. He's an Emmy-winning TV person. I bought a tie or two from his collection. They were fabulous, by the way.
Those are great ties. And I mean, look, legitimately, he's one of the most successful people on the planet.
Period. You may not somebody might not like him, but to basically say a complete falsehood about the person and then generate all kinds of legal cases that are completely false. We are being fed a steady diet of anti-reality. And that's a very, very toxic mix that we've been force-fed for a long time. That's the reason why it was so healthy for the president to have the MMA contests on the front lawn of the White House. Why? One, it's real. Mm-hmm. You get in that octagon, I think it's an octagon, and you have a certain amount of time to perform, and you have to, and you can't fake it. It's not WWE. It's not fake. It's real. There's something about the contest and the potential for injury. People may not like that, but right now we're being gutted in terms of our feelings of being centered in ourselves and in our bodies. So it's good to see real battles. And generally speaking, we think of that as a kind of masculine enterprise, at least when men are fighting on the front lawn of the White House. And that's good too, because the president is hated for being a masculine man. Mm-hmm. People really dislike it. Man, he eats Big Macs, and he doesn't use flowery language. He's given to sometimes saying an obscenity. Good. Right. That's so great, because that's real, and people voted for it because they don't really want to be put to sleep. They don't want to be fed a steady diet of fiction and turned fictional themselves. And that's what's happening. That's why the president's 2 terms in office have been, I think, I like Tony Robbins, but this is the free and best self-help seminar that the country has ever been treated to. Do what Donald Trump does in some measure, identify the characteristics of the president and cherry pick the best ones and see if you can live up to some of those things. You know, we all go through things. I've gone through my own challenges. And I remember thinking to myself during some of these trials and tribulations, hey, it's okay if I'm like 35% as strong as the president, but I don't want to be 3% as strong. Mm-hmm. So I got to hang tough here. It's hurting me, but I'm not going to stop moving forward. I'll take the challenges. I think millions and millions and millions of people are doing that. And that's why when he stood up after being shot and said, fight, again, a real, genuine, inspiring moment involving real injury, pathos, danger. That's the antidote to ChatGPT and Facebook.
And it seems like 50% of the country is getting that therapy, right, from this moment. There's a third of the country, though, and I'm going to call out some of they seem to be searching for this authenticity, but not only are they not finding it, they're finding the exact opposite. So, like, you look at the Democrats that are flocking behind James Tallarico in Texas and Graham Plattner in Maine. Look, I am not a Christian, but Tallarico's version of Christianity is so perverted and twisted, I have a hard time even understanding how anybody in that state can't see through him. And Plattner's entire persona appears to be a construct, and the real portions of it are kind of terrifying. What is happening there psychologically?
I think that we have among us the myth of the vampire is the best metaphor. We have a third of the country who have become the walking dead. They need your blood in order to continue existing. They want to take your sense of autonomy and do away with it. The only way they can feel effective and alive is if they take away your sense of self and your sense of truth. It's not enough that they don't have it. They have to feast on yours. And then what? Cede all of their decision making to a big thing like the state, because then at that point, the only way that they can feel like they exist is en masse. They're not generative. They're not creating things. Vampires don't make things. They drink things, right?
They drain
our blood.
Yeah,
exactly. And so I think that that's what's happening is that, unfortunately, these progressive policies have created untold millions, a third of the country, as you say, of essentially vampires, the walking dead, and they don't want the truth, and they are averse to it as they would be to garlic or a cross.
Wow. That's
right.
I'm gonna stop you there, and because that's amazing. We have just about 30 seconds left here in this segment. Dr. Keith Ablow, how do folks stay in touch with you, and how do they reach out to you for help? Because right now, I've said for a while, we need people in the mental health profession who aren't coddling psychosis.
There you go. So keithablow.com. I make it easy, and you can just send an email from there. I'll get it. I'll respond, and I'll try to be helpful.
Beautiful. Dr. Keith Ablow, love to have you back on the program. This has been a fantastic segment. Folks, stay tuned. We have more great content coming up here on Breaking Battlegrounds right after the break. We will be back in one moment.
To run a successful business, you need one thing: customers. And how do you get customers? You get them through advertising. You get them through lead generation. But what happens if the leads don't exist or they don't have valid contact information? This is a familiar story all businesses deal with. Then they call these leads who don't exist, or they're bad numbers, or they're not in their service area. Argus 101 verifies every lead before your team picks up the phone. It's a real person in your area and a neighborhood that matches your ideal customer. Your team only calls people worth calling, thus saving you money. free trial at argus101.com. That's ARGUS101.com. Help your business expand today. Go to argus101.com. ARGUS101.com. Hello, Breaking Battlegrounds listeners. Did you know that private student loan debt in the United States totals about $300 billion? That's with a B. About $45 billion of that is labeled as distressed, which means people are behind on payments. YRefi, who is a proud sponsor of our show, refinances this distressed or defaulted private student loans that others won't touch. They don't even care what your credit score is. They provide you with a custom loan payment based on your ability to pay. YRefi is not a debt settlement company. They work with each borrower individually to tailor a loan that meets your specific financial situation and helps you pay this loan off. So, folks, if you would like to learn more how to put your mind at ease and your budget back on track, call YRefi at 877-400-9989 and tell them Sam and Chuck sent you. You can go and look into them at YRefi, YREFY.com to get more information. They will help you reduce your monthly payment and guarantee interest rates under 6%, ensuring financial relief to you as you pay off your private student loan. Jump on that website or call them today.
Dear political candidate, listen up. I'm talking to you. YourName.vote should be the starting point of every campaign. It's memorable, looks great on signs and mailers, helps voters find you online, and gives AI tools a direct path to your campaign website. Why send people to a complicated web address when your name can be the address? Visit name.com today and claim your .vote domain.
Sam and I are always talking about being prepared, whether it's hurricanes in Florida, earthquakes in California, flooding in Arizona, or supply chain disruptions.
Exactly, Chuck. When pharmacies shut down, it does not matter how tough you are, you still need access to critical medicine.
That's why we trust Jace Medical. The Jace case comes with 5 life-saving antibiotics and key over-the-counter meds, so you're covered when things get disrupted.
And Jace goes beyond just the Jace case. They also offer first aid kits, daily prescriptions, and long-term nutrition with Jace Pantry. Don't wait for the next hurricane warning or natural disaster. Take control of your health and peace of mind today.
Visit jace.com and use code FUTURE at checkout for $10 off your order. That's FUTURE at JASE.com.
In today's digital world, standing out is more important than ever. Whether you're running for office, leading a cause, or hosting a vote for the cutest pet in town, you need a web domain that's simple, memorable, and action-oriented. You need a .vote web domain. It's clear, impactful, and establishes a lasting presence for your campaign. Don't wait. Head to GoDaddy.com or name.com, type in your name.vote, and get started today. Because after all, every pet deserves a web address that's as special as they are.
All right, welcome back to Breaking Battlegrounds. Our next guest up today, Alex Wells, an editor at the Washington Free Beacon, junior fellow at the Middle East Forum. He is a returning guest to the program. He was last on May 1st, and he is coming back from a fascinating trip. He did a media tour of NATO's eastern flank, Finland, the Baltics, and Poland. And frankly, those areas, I have not gotten enough news coverage, Brennan, frankly, anytime recently. These are major geopolitical hot-button flashpoints that could erupt in the future, and no one's talking about it, and a lot of it ties into everything that's going on in the world today in the Middle East and Russia and everything else. So, Alex Wells, welcome back to the program.
Thank you for having me. Always a joy to join you guys.
So tell us a little bit about this trip. You know, how did it get set up? Where'd you go? What were you doing exactly? I want to frame that, and then we're going to get into the details of it in the next segment here.
Well, just to show everybody all my cards on this front, I was invited by some foreign ministries of countries on the NATO eastern flank just for a general media tour to take a look at the situation on the ground, speak to officials, talk to folks there. And we started in Finland, and then we all split up our group. And we went across the Baltics into Poland, and the plan was to head into Ukraine as well for a few days. But really, when we were thinking about joining and crossing the border, things really escalated, especially in the west of Ukraine. And I just think it got to a point where they didn't feel comfortable ferrying us in anymore. So 1, 2, 3, Finland. For me, I went to Latvia. I spent time in Latvia and Riga, and then Poland.
So almost nobody knows anything about Latvia. Tell us a little bit about that country, your experience and your impressions there, because Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia are one of the great success stories in the modern world, and people don't know that.
You're absolutely right. I mean, these are some of the fastest growing economies, a very permissive environment for business. One thing that I really took away and that I think is an interesting development is, well, for those who don't know, these are very small countries, just upwards of 1 million people each. Lithuania is a little larger. But these are countries that were absorbed by the Soviet Union, were part of the Soviet Union. Unlike Finland and Poland, Poland was behind the Iron Curtain and they had a sort of puppet communist government for a while. But I mean, Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia were socialist republics. And so there's really, when you land in Latvia and the Baltics, there's an ever-present trauma that lives with them and that carries along with them of Russian occupation, Soviet occupation, things of that nature. And so there's a real social, it cultivates a real social cohesion, but these are really dynamic economies. They're fast growing. They're trying to balance both their security needs, their very real and imminent security needs, with also, reassuring investors that it's a safe place for investment and it's a great place for business. But these are also countries that are some of the highest spenders in NATO on defense spending per or get, part of their GDP for defense spending. Latvia, for example, has enshrined in law they have to spend 5% of their GDP on defense spending. I mean, if everybody replicated that, we'd be in a very different world. There's a Russian-speaking minority in Latvia, which is really interesting. And I heard from officials there, former government officials and others that have been co-opted Russian speakers by Russia, and they've been given TV shows, and they go and their propaganda campaigns, and they now live in exile in Russia, and they talk about how poorly the Russian speakers are treated in the Baltics. I saw none of that, but I guess that's just the broad outline of Latvia. I mean, it's super interesting. And Jim Garrity at National Review, and also as a column at the Post, who was with me, he did great stuff on this, great coverage. But one interesting thing here is that There was an analysis done that said by 2030, NATO will be too strong, and the spending projections and everything for Russia to move. And so they have a really small window here. And the biggest opportunity is the Baltics. The Baltics are very tiny, have very few aircraft. And so there is a real lingering fear here that if Putin certainly absorbs Kyiv, but also if he gets tired of it and wants to move along, the Baltics are the next opportunity for him.
Well, are the people there cognizant maybe of how much the people of Ukraine have helped forestay that? Like, geopolitically and strategically, I know Putin is obsessed with Ukraine, but he might have been better off if he was going to launch this war to launch it first on the Baltic states. I think they kind of got pretty lucky there.
I think you're right, and no, I mean the Baltics really see Ukraine's fight as theirs. The solidarity is incredible. I mean, some people were almost moved to tears recalling the eve of the Russian invasion into Ukraine, and they really treat their fates as intertwined with theirs. It's an incredible outlook when you go and to see the attitudes of regular people. But Ukraine, by the way, going down the path you were talking about there, Ukraine has almost become a net security provider. I mean, we've seen they've revolutionized drone warfare. They're sending drones, exporting drones to the Gulf to help Gulf allies in the struggle against Iran and to repel some of the Iranian attacks. Ukraine has
their rise has been extraordinary. I apologize to cut you off. We're going to break right here. We're coming back. The 6-minute segment throws me and every guest we've ever had on the program. But don't worry, folks. We got a 14-minute segment coming up. Stay tuned. More with Alex Wells in just a moment. Welcome back to Breaking Battlegrounds with your host, Sam Stone. They're continuing on now with Alex Wells, editor at the Washington Free Beacon, junior fellow at the Middle East Forum. Follow him on X at WellsAlex. We're talking about a media tour he just made, which is fascinating, across Finland, Latvia, and Poland. And we were talking about the changes that are coming to NATO, to that part of the world, to Eastern Europe, really as a result of this Ukraine war. And I'm going to be honest, Alex. Well, there's plenty of audio tape, so I can't not be honest here. I said a couple of years ago, I thought by now Ukraine would be done. They would just simply not have the population to continue this fight against Russia. But as you pointed out, they may well be in a much stronger position today than they were 2 years ago. And that position is strengthening all of Eastern Europe and NATO.
Totally. I mean, when people ask how much longer is this going to go on, the obvious answer is I don't know. But the next obvious answer, sadly, is however long Russia decides it does. Mm-hmm. And the reason for that is they have such escalatory dominance in this theater where they have superior stockpiles, superior manpower, and most of all, a superior threshold for pain and suffering and tolerance where they don't really care. I mean, I talked to officials all across Europe, I'm not going to say where, but who said that bodies of combatants are being pulled up who had almost plastic helmets on. I mean, Russian casualties, and some of the artillery that North Korea is delivering are so old and so dated that it's actually blowing up in the chambers before they can be launched. Not to mention, these aren't a whole lot of ethnic Russians dying in this war. Putin is pulling people from all reaches of the continent, from Siberia, from Chechnya, from the Caucasus here. And for them, it's they're signing a death warrant. But these are poor people, and they need to feed their families. Mm-hmm. And you're seeing a sort of a underground sort of like cryptic ethnic cleansing campaign. And it's a very twisted way to wage a war here. But like I said, Ukraine has really stood its ground. It does seem like the momentum has shifted, or certainly been stunted from Russia's perspective. And a lot of this is the Europeans. I always blast the Europeans, but they're the ones paying for basically all of this effort, and you've seen some really positive developments from Germany. We'll see if that materializes, but there does seem to be a shift in the center of gravity of NATO, and this is a point I made over and over again with the guys there, is that Americans used to think of NATO of London and France and Spain, and now those are the three who lag behind. I mean, Britain used to run the world with their navy. What can they really do now? France.
They can't even get a single frigate into the Gulf. I mean,
France is too interested in investing in their nuclear capabilities and their non-conventional. It doesn't help NATO, and the Spaniards, I mean, just don't even pretend really to feel compelled by NATO requirements anymore. And so the center of gravity has really shifted, I think, to the eastern flank, to Poland, to Finland, a new member, and then the Baltics. These are the people who take it the most serious. They're right on the doorstep of the Russian bear, the threat, and I think that's shown out.
I want to start, because you started by landing in Finland. What is, in talking to people there, and in both officials and people on the street, what is the general sense of current U.S. foreign policy and what's going on both in Ukraine and the Middle East?
Well, I think they do see it as one sort of collective fight in different theaters. And so like I said, we're seeing incredible Iranian involvement with drone production and drone transportation to Russia in the fight against Ukraine. We're seeing Russian diplomatic and political support for Iran amid the conflict. So there's obviously a new axis, and China's right in the middle of this being cultivated here by American adversaries. Finland is, of course, very European in and out, and so they're very troubled by the Greenland rhetoric by President Trump, and they're not fond of it. But Finland also brings icebreakers, and Trump also has been very fond of their prime minister and the icebreakers. He has a strange affinity for the icebreakers, and it is a unique advantage they bring in that regard to the Arctic.
It's one of the things I like most about Trump is that at times he shows that little boy within, because he likes big machines. He loves big machines. I do too. So I feel him on that one.
It's true.
So then how is that different when you go from Finland into Latvia and Poland? How does that attitude shift, or does it?
Well, it certainly shifts. And it shifts in the sense that just like I talked about in the Baltics, how there is this sort of trauma that lingers with the people as being part of the Soviet Union. Poland was behind the Iron Curtain. Finland never had to face that. I mean, Finland fought off Russia any World War II buffs out there, which I'm sure there's plenty, the Continuation War, the Winter War, where they tacitly sided with Nazi Germany to ward off an expansionist Stalin. And, Finland was one of the first to pay reparations to the United States after World War II. But, when you look back at it, they did what they had to do. They were not enthusiastic Nazis by any stretch of the imagination. They did what they had to do to preserve their territorial sovereignty and integrity. But that trauma doesn't exist in the social consciousness as much as it does certainly in Poland and the Baltics.
Yeah, absolutely. Back in it was 86, end of 86. My family actually got invited. My dad brought me and one of my sisters to the Soviet Union. We were invited for a journalist conference for. They were first starting to admit some of the enormous environmental damage that occurred under the Soviet system. And so it was a tour for that. But I will never forget, leaving the country, we took a train to Finland. We get to Helsinki, walk into the hotel there, very nice hotel. My father, who was one of the cheapest humans ever, I mean, he grew up in the Depression, walks straight to the concierge and says, I need you to get me a reservation tonight at the most expensive restaurant in town. And this guy just looks at us and says, coming from Russia, eh?
Amazing.
Yeah.
It's true though. I mean, you can feel it. Yeah.
Yeah, extraordinary place. So with Poland in particular, I want to focus on them a little bit because, quite frankly, I think they may, at this point, have the most effective military, potentially most effective military in Europe. They are stepping up to a leadership role that Poland has maybe never held in the world before in its history. Tell us what you saw on this trip.
Well, you're so correct in highlighting that. And actually, the day after we returned, the very airbase, the F-16 airbase that is partnered with Americans in Poland, the day after we got back, they got their F-35. It was a big deal for them. So they were really excited. And then the infusement of 5,000 plus troops, Trump announced that later on as well, into Poland. He's pulling out of Germany. It's a sort of restructuring. But it's true. I mean, and this is a point we talked about, a lot of us. Tim Nerozzi at the Washington Examiner brought this up a lot as well, where Poland, I mean, Trump is somebody who cares about, ideological friendship and kinship in that sense when it comes to foreign partners. And Poland really leads the way. They're the most really pro-American country in Europe. They're very Catholic. And for the most part, they've warded off large-scale migration. It's a very Catholic country and just a traditional country that embodies traditional Judeo-Christian values. And so we don't really understand why they're not leaning into that more. And we've brought that to their attention. We think it's great. They're being very diplomatic, and they don't want to make this a personal friendship, more than it is a country-to-country relationship, which is what it should be.
Yeah. They have to continue after Trump.
Of course. But it's undeniable that they are stepping up to the plate and that they are seen as the serious. I mean, I think, depending on how you count the UK, I think they're the third largest standing army in NATO behind the US and Turkey.
Right. So. Yeah. And my general impression is that they're probably the best equipped, best trained of all of them, other than us, obviously. Want to shift a little bit, obviously, the Iran deal that Trump just made, which I kind of think will come apart because Iran has never shown much interest in maintaining these deals. How is that being seen in some of these countries? I know you came back before all this happened, but do you have any impression of how the Eastern European bloc is seeing what's going on with Iran?
So this is another sort of decade-long development that's very interesting. Is some of the more pro-Israel voices coming from Europe now are all in Eastern Europe, where if you said that in the 40s, 50s, 60s, you would never believe it. But
no.
But it's true. And again, the Iran deal, I'm not panicking yet because America is not in a desperate situation here. We've been spared. We're very insulated when it comes to energy prices for them, certainly compared to the rest of the world when it comes to the disruption of flows and logistics avenues. So that's a real concern for them, and it's a political concern. But Trump lashed out a couple times at NATO, and he wished that they were helping out more in the Strait of Hormuz. But you go to Poland, and they're like, "What What do you want us to do? We're a landlocked country.
Right.
And the port, the Latvians are like, what do you, huh?
Yeah.
Like our vessels are equipped for the Gulf of Finland. How are we going to get? So it was funny, but they've learned to navigate the sort of political turbulence that comes with Trump and the ups and the downs, and they're looking for stability more than anything. It's kind of like tariffs. If they understand what's coming, they can adjust and adapt. But it is the unpredictability that I think that frightens them a bit.
Which makes a lot of sense. How much is Poland? How big is Poland's role in what's going on in Ukraine right now?
Oh, it's huge. I mean, Poland is, and the Polish and the Ukrainians have had fraught relations in centuries past. Mm-hmm. But certainly they're one of the bulwarks behind the Ukrainian effort against Russia. I mean, because it sort of seems a collective fight here. I visited the Polish-Belarusian border, which is highly militarized. If you recall, in 2022, there was a very big incident where the Belarusians essentially opened the floodgates of the border and just let, I believe it was 4,000, I could be wrong about that, but thousands of migrants just swarmed the Polish border. They weren't prepared for it. So overnight, Poland built basically a 500 and some kilometer security barrier, and it's heavily militarized now. But that's one of these hybrid warfare tactics Russia's launching against not only Poland, but the Baltics. We've seen drone incidents in Romania. We've seen infrastructure saboteurs being paid by Russia to sabotage rail lines in Poland, hacking, electricity grid attacks, a foiled one in Poland. I was told could have taken down half of the country's power, 50% of the country's power. So there's a whole lot of activity that it falls just below the Article 5 threshold. Mm-hmm. And Russia testing NATO's resolve here, wanted to see what they do in response. That is really troubling. So this is not a far away, by any stretch of the imagination, conflict for the Poles. This is very real, and they're seeing a non-kinetic war essentially being waged against them as well.
How one of the interesting aspects of that is we haven't heard much in terms of the non-kinetic war. We only have 2 minutes here, but I wanted to touch on this real quickly. How much of an electronic war is ongoing in that theater?
Well, I'm not a tech guy, so I don't have a huge amount of literacy in this area, but we spoke to a lot of high-end officials who reassure us that they're on every technological front, electrical front, grid stuff. I mean, this is really important, and there is a sustained effort on the Russian part to destabilize NATO countries. Again, not in a kinetic way, not something that would issue an Article 5 imposition right away,
right.
But electronic war, weaponized migration, things of this sense are being sustained.
Last question before we let you go here. What is China's role in all this? Like, where are they? How do these countries view China? Because there's a lot of Chinese tech that's ending up getting shot at Eastern Europeans right now.
There is, and there's a growing movement in Europe that recognizes this, and they're barring certain Chinese vehicles from military bases and Chinese cell phones from sensitive areas, and so there's a general recognition of this. But just like with America, it's a hard not to untangle yourself from with the Chinese economy.
They sell a lot of cheap stuff that people like. I mean, that's it. Yeah,
we've benefited from it, and it's a trade-off, and you got to. But I mean, China is a stalwart ally of Russia at the moment. I don't know if it's an incredibly organic relationship.
Historically, not at all.
I don't know how durable it is, but it stands right now that they're pumping up the Russian economy, and they're the real lifeline here and giving it oxygen. So the Europeans recognize this in the East.
Alex Wells, thank you so much once again. You were fantastic. We really appreciate having you on the program. Folks, follow him on X at WellsAlex. Breaking Battlegrounds will be back on the air next week, but if you're not already, again, go to breakingbattlegrounds.vote, get signed up for our podcast portion. We are wherever you get your favorite podcasts. Subscribe, share, give it a 5-star review. Brandon's smiling at me because I always forget that last part. Breaking Battlegrounds will be back on the air next week, but if you're tuning in for the podcast, you get Montana AG.
Sam and I are always talking about being prepared, whether it's hurricanes in Florida, earthquakes in California, flooding in Arizona, or supply chain disruptions.
Exactly, Chuck. When pharmacies shut down, it does not matter how tough you are, you still need access to critical medicine.
That's why we trust Jace Medical. The Jace case comes with 5 life-saving antibiotics and key over-the-counter meds, so you're covered when things get disrupted.
And Jace goes beyond just the Jace case. They also offer first aid kits, daily prescriptions, and long-term nutrition with Jace Pantry. Don't wait for the next hurricane warning or natural disaster. Take control of your health and peace of mind today.
Visit jace.com and use code FUTURE at checkout for $10 off your order. That's FUTURE at JASE.com.
Dear political candidate, listen up. I'm talking to you. Having an exact match domain like yourname.vote isn't a luxury, it's campaign basics. It's easy to print on yard signs and mailers, easy for voters to remember, helps people find you directly, and gives AI tools like ChatGPT a clear source for campaign information. So why settle for a long patchwork website address when you can own your actual name with a .vote domain? Visit name.com today and claim your personalized .vote website address.
Hello, Breaking Battlegrounds listeners. Did you know that private student loan debt in the United States totals about $300 billion? That's with a B. About $45 billion of that is labeled as distressed, which means people are behind on payments. Why Refi, who is a proud sponsor of our show, refinances this distressed or defaulted private student loans that others won't touch. They don't even care what your credit score is. They provide you with a custom loan payment based on your ability to pay. Why Refi is not a debt settlement company. They work with each borrower individually to tailor a loan that meets your specific financial situation and helps you pay this loan off. So, folks, if you would like to learn more how to put your mind at ease and your budget back on track, call Why Refi at 877-400-9989 and tell them Sam and Chuck sent you. You can go and look into them at YREFI, YREFY.com to get more information. They will help you reduce your monthly payment and guarantee interest rates under 6%, ensuring financial relief to you as you pay off your private student loan. Jump on that website or call them today.
Welcome back to Breaking Battlegrounds. Our next guest up today, Montana Attorney General Austin Knudsen. He has been a frequent guest on this program. He was first elected in 2020, re-elected in 2024. He is doing amazing work in Montana, representing the people there. Austin Knudsen, welcome back to the program.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So I'm you know what? I'm jealous, so I'm just going to start right here. You were at UFC 250.
I was. It was pretty awesome.
Oh, dude, I'm so jealous right now. Tell us about what was that experience like?
Well, I mean, I've been to DC a few times in my life, and was there briefly as an intern, 25 years ago. But to see what the president brought in there, the spectacle, the size of it, I mean, and it was packed. I think probably the funniest thing to me was the anti-rally. So literally just across the street towards Washington Monument, there were these protesters. There was like 20 of them. and you almost felt kind of bad for them. Their pink hair and the average age was like 77. And they're holding their signs and screaming at 80,000 plus Trump fans, UFC fans. Of all creeds, of all races, of all ethnicities. I mean, it was awesome. It was a huge event, and it was a ton of fun.
I'm so jealous. I would love to have been there for that. That is just awesome. All right, moving on to the real stuff. However, here, you have just joined the Trump administration's anti-fraud roundtable. Tell us what's going on there, because I've said for a while, since some of this stuff started coming out with Nick Shirley in Minnesota and some of the others that have been exposing this, they are more vulnerable in certain states than others, but a lot of these are just federal programs, and the vulnerabilities are going to be nationwide.
Yeah, well, especially after COVID, since Obamacare, I mean, just truckloads of cash from the federal government has been coming to a lot of these state agencies. And what we're seeing in some of these states is there was very little oversight. And that just brings in rampant fraud. You've seen it in Minnesota now. You're seeing it in California. I think we're just seeing the tip of the iceberg in California, but now other states, Ohio, states that you wouldn't think necessarily. We're certainly seeing it here in Montana. I've got the Medicaid fraud unit under my purview here at the State Department of Justice. We're very busy. I mean, it's a routine thing. We find doctors who are incorrectly billing, fraudsters who are claiming to be doing one thing and billing Medicaid services, and they're not actually providing those. Our state insurance commissioner, he just did like a $40 million case where he found huge amounts of fraud being perpetuated on our tribal communities, and it was going to California, claiming to be giving mental health treatment to tribal members in California, and it was a complete sham.
Oh, good grief!
So I mean, it's happening in Montana, it's happening all over the country, and kudos to the White House. You know, he brought Vice President Vance brought like 15 of us, I think. We all got in a room, we sat down. We threw ideas at the wall of how we can collaborate better. And that might not sound like much, Sam, but let me tell you, the first 4 years of my administration was under Joe Biden, and we didn't get a phone call from a federal agency. I mean, zero communication, zero cooperation. In fact, usually it was antagonistic. And now with Donald Trump in the White House, I mean, we're working with the federal government, our partners across the board weekly. I mean, it's just it is so night and day different. It's great.
One of the things, and this is kind of just a thought I have, and curious about your take on it, but I really do not understand Democrats on this who are kind of defending this fraud, who are trying to keep the walls in place and the opacity in place and prevent this from getting cleaned up and cleaned out. I look at this and I'm like, but it's your voters who wanted all these programs that provide all these services. And when you're stealing money from them, that's being taken away from the people who actually need help in various ways. Are Democrats participating in like this fraud roundtable behind the scenes? Are you communicating with other Democrat AGs who are saying, yeah, I'm concerned things are going on in my state too? Or are they just putting up a wall on this and saying, no, there are fraudsters, so it's okay?
No, they're definitely putting a wall up. So I will tell you, had I been the vice president, I would not have invited the Democrats. J.D. Vance is a better man than me. In the spirit of bipartisanship and trying to just tackle fraud, he invited Democrat AGs as well. None of them showed up.
None of them showed up. Two of them sent staffers. Then, to their credit, those staffers at least came. The Democrats tried making a press spectacle out of it. Oh, it was too late notice. We couldn't get there. The White House only gave me like 5 days notice. Okay. No, come on. Look, we still managed to get 15 AGs there on the Republican side. Yeah, nobody has a tough time making it to Washington, D.C. for a meeting with the president or the vice president on short notice. That is a joke.
Well, especially on such an important issue, right?
Yeah.
I think the fact that they didn't show up speaks volumes. Whether it's a power thing, they know this is funneling money to their voter base. Whether it's just Trump derangement, we've certainly seen that. Whatever this president says or does, these people just stick their fingers in their ears and scream and do the opposite. So I can't tell you why. I can just tell you it's pretty disappointing that none of my Democrat colleagues showed up.
That is insane. I mean, this should be one of the most unifying things in the country right now is let's all get rid of this fraud and save money and have better services from our government. That seems like about the easiest thing people could unify over, and yet that's not happening.
Well, and you made such a great point, right? Like a lot of these programs, I might not necessarily ideologically agree with. But
right.
The fact is, federal Congress put them in place. They funded them to help certain portions of the American public, and it's being stolen from.
Yep.
Forget about whether you agree with the program or not. The money's being stolen by fraudsters. This is a problem.
And those the people. I mean, let's just be honest. The people who are having that money stolen from them are largely voting for the people who are protecting the fraudsters. It's an insane cycle.
It's a weird situation. Yeah, I can't figure it.
All right, moving on to a little bit of a different topic. You have been working to support the Trump administration's repeal of some Biden-era anti-gun policies. Unfortunately, I think even for the pro-2A lobby, a lot of what Biden was doing sort of slipped under the radar during that period. So tell us what some of those policies are and what are you all doing to fight back against that?
Well, it wasn't so much that the Biden stuff slipped under the radar. It's just the fact that they shoved them through without going through notice and comment. I mean, that alone is flagrantly illegal under the Administrative Procedures Act. But look, so under Joe Biden, the ATF was terribly weaponized, very anti-industry, very anti-gun owner. We almost couldn't go a week without some crazy anti-gun rule being shoved through the ATF, which, I mean, understand what's going on there. The left knew they couldn't get the votes in Congress and the Senate, even as liberal as the Senate was under Joe Biden, they couldn't get this stuff done. So they'd run the ATF. Okay, so kudos to the Trump administration. First of all, Rob Sakata, the new director of ATF, I've gotten to know him personally. The guy's a rock star. He's got great staff with him, but he's a gun owner. He's a gun guy. This is a guy that gets it. Do I wish the ATF would go away? Yeah, I do. But if I'm forced to have an ATF, this is the kind of guy that I want running it. He's doing a fantastic job. So he brought in a couple of really smart lawyers to start looking at a lot of these Biden-era rules, and they've just started repealing them. I think they're on solid ground. A couple of them, the pistol stabilizing brace rule. That's a piece of plastic that goes on the back end of a pistol,
right,
to help handicapped people shoot.
Yeah,
that's not
it doesn't change the weapon.
It does not change the platform at all. It operates functionally the same. That doesn't somehow make it a machine gun or a class 3 or a short-barreled rifle. That one's gone. The engaged in business rule, that one was huge for guys like me. You got a lot of gun owners, a lot of gun collectors. I mean, maybe you buy a duck hunting shotgun, you try it out, maybe it doesn't fit right. Maybe you can't shoot. You can't hit anything with it. It's too long. It's too heavy. You don't like it. Whatever. As happens every single day. Maybe I advertise and I sell that. I trade it. I give it to my kid. Whatever. The Biden administration says, I am now a gun dealer. I am engaged in the business, and I have to have a federal firearms license. And if I don't, I'm a felon. Whoa. That's bonkers.
Whoa. That one flew under my radar. Holy cow.
That was a huge one. I mean, you talk about millions and millions of Americans who do this routinely.
I've done this.
Absolutely. People that aren't, they don't own a store. That's not their daily job. That's not how they create an income. They just maybe buy something that doesn't quite fit. They don't like it, whatever. And you want to trade it or sell it, just like you would any other piece of private property that you own.
Right.
And suddenly that means you have to have a federal firearms license. So that rule is now gone. That's a huge one.
Wow. That is enormous. I am surprised I missed that. I'm kind of kicking myself here, but I mean, like my personal example, I went and bought a Glock. It was the first Glock I've ever owned. I found I did not like the double trigger. I like a traditional safety.
Yep.
And so I went and sold it. And you're telling me that under Biden, I would have violated the law for not having a federal firearms license when I sold that?
100%. That is absolutely correct. I mean, people get on Facebook Marketplace or take out a classified ad every single day. You can sell a couch. You can sell a car. So, I mean, when you sell a used car privately, are you required to be a licensed automotive dealer?
No.
More people are killed by cars than by firearms in this country every year. I mean, this was just a flagrant anti-gun attempt to slap down gun owners. So, I mean, that one, like you say, I think a lot of people weren't aware of that one, but that one was huge, and huge kudos to Director Sakata and the Trump administration for rolling that one back.
Boy, that is enormous. That is extraordinary. All right, we've got a few more minutes left with you. I want to touch on a little bit of an immigration topic because this made the news across the country a little bit. You invoked supervisory control over one of your county attorney's offices. So lay out what happened there and how that works, because I
Yeah.
don't think most people would understand that process. And
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
I'll try to be quick. So in Montana, we don't have DAs, we have CAs. They're elected county attorneys. We have 56 counties. Every county has an elected criminal prosecutor. I was one before I had this job, so I understand what that job does. Under Montana law, the legislature has given the attorney general, me, but all attorney generals, whoever's sitting in this chair, general sweeping supervisory control over all the county attorneys. Do we use it very often? No. Very, very rarely, in fact. I've only used it a couple times in my 6 years in office when I've got a county attorney that I think is acting overtly politically. That's exactly what happened here. Everybody's heard of Bozeman. If you've watched Yellowstone, Bozeman, Montana has become kind of a chic. It's kind of the new Vale. I mean, we call it Bose Angeles because
I'm so sorry. I lived in Montana years ago, and that's just a disaster.
There's more Californians in Bozeman now than Montanans, but that is what it is.
Yeah.
The politics have changed, and so we've got a county attorney there who is trying to play national politics, and she on her own interpreted state law and said, well, I don't have to cooperate with ICE because they're not a legitimate law enforcement agency.
They're not a legitimate law enforcement agency?
That is a policy that her office promulgated. I exercise supervisory control. I said, no, you will rescind that policy and you will cooperate with ICE. Because look, that county, that's Gallatin County, because of the growth, they've got a real illegal immigration problem there. We've got cartels, Mexican drug cartels, openly operating in Gallatin County. A lot of human trafficking, sex trafficking. This is happening in Gallatin County right under her nose. And in the sake of being woke and trying to play to her base, she's trying to play national politics and kick ICE out of her county. Anyway, I told her, no, we're not doing that. You will rescind that policy because I have the authority to do it. She can like it. She can not like it. She can stamp her feet and scream. It doesn't change state law. She has now run to our state Supreme Court to try to get our state Supreme Court to say, well, because this is a political issue, you shouldn't let the Attorney General do this. That's really dangerous. If we let one county attorney try to buck state law, Katie barred the door. I think we're going to see a lot more of this. So this is at our state Supreme Court, and we're hoping they rule correctly here.
In the entire legal field, the thing that concerns me most right now is this increasing and accelerating tendency on the left to view the law as whatever the politics of the day are.
Oh, I think it's such a great point. And it's scary in Montana when we've got a historically very activist court. All of our judges in Montana are elected, but our state Supreme Court especially, the trial bar, historically very, very liberal, they have owned those elections. We've got one of the most activist Supreme Courts in the country.
Wow.
I can show you the receipts. It's not good. It's gotten marginally better in the last couple of years, but she is 100% banking on the Supreme Court's ideological dislike for me for the hope that they'll rule in her favor. So I'm hoping the law prevails. This is not a controversial law. It's been in place for decades in Montana. I didn't write it. It's in place. So
yeah,
we're gonna see what happens.
So you just hit on the key point. Before we wrap up here, I wanted to touch on it's the law that's in place, right? I think we can all agree. We hear Democrats talk all the time about we need to protect our democracy. Well, maybe the single fundamental block on the bottom of the foundation of that democracy is rule of law. That whatever the laws we pass are, those are the laws that we enforce. And when you start going away from that, you open the door to a level of chaos this country has never seen before.
No, it's such a great point. We need objective hard truths, and that starts with your state legislature and the laws that they pass. I think everybody thinks that the federal government creates most of the laws in this country, but that's just not true. Your state legislature probably drafts 95% of the laws that affect you and govern you day to day. Those have to be objective. They have to be hard. They have to be set. If you're in a situation where the left can just run to an activist judge and get them to overturn a law because of political ideology, that's a really scary place for us. And I think in some states, certainly in Montana, we've seen that.
We've seen that all across the country. It's terrifying. All right, last thing here. You were as we mentioned at the start of the interview, you went to the UFC 250, and I am insanely jealous. But you've also done something I think is pretty cool. You're waiving driver's license and ID fees to encourage Montanans to add their citizenship marker in celebration of America's 250th birthday this July. Okay, let me ask, what is adding a citizenship marker?
So our last legislative session, a good friend of mine, Senator Teresa Manzella, very strong conservative, she brought a bill, and it got passed, that gives Montana citizens the option, the right to put on their driver's license, their ID card, their real ID, whatever the case may be, a marker that says, you know what, I'm a U.S. citizen. I'm proud of it. I can document it. So if you can bring in the documents, we'll put it on your driver's license or on your ID card. It's really that simple. Normally, there would be fees associated with doing that because it's an added step. It's more printing, all those things. We decided to help the president celebrate America's 250th, that for the month of July, if you come in, you renew your driver's license, you want that citizenship marker, you're going to get it for free. We're going to waive those fees. We're going to see how this goes. If it's popular enough, I might just extend the thing. It might be past July, but for now, for America's 250th, we're going to do it in July. And it's one little thing we can do for customer service for the taxpayers of Montana. Come renew. We'll put the marker on there. It's a really cool American Eagle that goes on your ID card or on your driver's license.
And you just keep making me jealous. I can't exactly drive up there and have you slap that on my Arizona ID, can I?
You can move up here.
And you know what? It's getting close to that. I do love Montana. You guys have a fantastic state. Attorney General Austin Knudsen, we always love having you on this program. Folks, follow him on X at MTAG Knudsen. Last word, AG Knudsen, anything you want to tell folks before we let you go?
Republican AGs are getting it done. I mean, I'm the chair of the Republican AG Association, but look, I've got a lot of great colleagues. We're doing a lot of great stuff around the country. But Montana, we're out kicking our coverage. We're doing a lot of big things. It's great to have a White House and a federal government that's helping us, that's working with the states. That's just such a breath of fresh air, and they're doing great things. So glad to be part of it. Thanks for having me on, Sam. I appreciate it.
Oh, always. We are always thrilled to have you on here. Love having you on the program. You're always fun to talk to. And thank you for the work you're doing, because it makes an impact outside of Montana, too. It helps everyone who's hearing this program, the fight you guys are putting up there. So much, much love and appreciation for that work.
Well, appreciate you, too. You guys keep it up. You're doing a great job.
Always indeed. Attorney General Austin Knudsen, always love having him on the program. Next up, do we have a Bee's Corner? Do we have some music coming in here?
Murder, mystery, secrets untold. The truth gets set free when B gets a hold. Crimes where killers roam off free, or even ones where they get caught at the scene. From cold case files to headline news, she's breaking it all down just for you. So come take a seat, don't miss a beat. These crime corners where the stories go deep.
All right, B, what do we got?
Okay, so today's story is about Heaven's Gate suicides back in 1997. This occurred.
Okay, I'm no spring chicken, so I remember this.
You remember this?
Yeah.
Oh, this one is so eerie. It got me. So 39 members of Heaven's Gate, it was like a cult, or a religious group is what they said they were found dead inside a mansion in Rancho Santa Fe, California. And investigators later determined that the deaths had happened in waves over several days. So a little bit of
that was
background.
Okay. I'm going to stop you real quick, because that
me.
was the part that freaked me out the most about it. Like, okay, so if you go back to, I just blanked on the name of the other famous group where they all took the Jello shots or whatever and went out. But they did that all at once, right? So like everyone just dies at once.
Yeah.
these people actually like watched their friends and fellow cult members die and then chose to continue, like in groups, continue to do it.
It started with 15 and then another 15 and then 7. So the last 7 included the leader as well. So this started with a man named Marshall Applewhite, which back in 1972, he met this woman named Bonnie Nettles in Texas. And he was a former music teacher. He was in the Army. Nettles was a nurse. And they became the 2 leaders of what would become Heaven's Gate. So from 1974 to 1975, the group began performing like publicly and trying to form and get more people involved. And they taught that they were spiritual messengers preparing followers to leave Earth and reach a higher evolutionary level that they later called the next level. And the human group, or the group, used different names, including Human Individual Metamorphosis and Total Overcomers Anonymous, before becoming known as Heaven's Gate. But then Bonnie Nettles, she died in 1985. And after her death, that made Applewhite, he continued to lead the group, but he had to change the belief system because it was built on early teachings that both leaders would not die and they would just physically ascend. So that kind of like killed that little theory they were trying to push. So Heaven's Gate pretty much was like mixed UFO beliefs, New Age ideas, Christian end times language, and science fiction influence. It was also said that this suicide, they think, was influenced by the internet, which looking at it
Which
today,
was brand new.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And looking at it today, and the reason being because they had a website, but nobody actually ever went to the website and signed up. But I'm sure people actually visited it. But I think if you look at it today and how much technology and the internet and ChatGPT, AI, everything has an influence in suicide, I would believe it now. Like that makes sense.
Yeah.
So the eerie thing about this, though, is that these people made exit interview videos, and they sent these videos to old cult members that were involved in this but were no longer like living in the house. And this was a 9,000 square foot house in
Beverly Hills, if I remember. I mean, it was a really like posh neighborhood. Yeah.
Beautiful house. And they got the 911 call was one of the old members who received these exit interview videos from a few of his friends that were in the cult. And it's an eerie phone call. Like, he calls them and he's like, hey, like I got a phone call and I think that there are 39 people who just committed suicide in this house. And they were like, I'm sorry, what? How do you know this knowledge? He's like, well, I used to be a part of it and I received exit interviews from it. And even Applewhite.
That's wild.
Yeah, Applewhite did an interview too, and he was talking about how, are you ready to become like your next level human? And it's weird because they refer to themselves as vehicles. Like the human soul as a vehicle.
I remember that. I remember that. Yep.
Yeah, so that was really interesting. And then, as I said earlier, the first wave was 15 people. The second wave, 15 people. The final wave, 9 people, including Applewhite. But the way they died, they took the shot, they took some drugs, and they put a plastic bag over the head. But they were all wearing dark clothing, the same Nike shoes. They had $5.75 in their pocket, along with an ID of some sort, whether it was a driver's license or a passport.
If I remember, that was like the amount of the fee for the next stage or transportation or whatever it was.
They never, in the videos, like the interview exits, they never got into details about that. But they did find like the literal instructions of how to commit the suicide. And they were all covered in like purple shrouds in a triangular fashion where like the triangle like came down from their forehead, which was interesting. And they also, all of them had a bag packed neat and clean right next to their bodies.
I remember that like they were going to travel on with their,
It's so chilling. So a lot of people were looking into it, and nobody's alive to really like
nobody who was actually there at that point.
Yeah, just previous members. Yeah. And I mean, they believed he was a con artist, but then why would he do it himself? You know, I think he actually believed it.
Yeah, if I remember, I didn't come across the impression that he was a con artist so much as these folks were just nuts.
Yeah, you can kind of see it in his eyes. In the video, it's just, I don't know. I feel like sometimes you can see crazy in the eyes.
Yes, you can.
Yeah.
You 100% can. All right, B. That's a great. Any more on that one?
No, that is it.
Okay,
that's it for today.
That was a fantastic one. I remember that. That was wild and weird.
Wild and weird.
Yeah. All right. So we have one more guest up for today, folks. Welcoming back to the show, Gary Gigi. He's president and CEO of Gigi Capital. We got him online? Perfect. Hey, Gary, how are you today?
I'm great. How are you, Sam?
Fantastic. I'm sorry I kept you waiting, but I wanted to hold you up. I know we have a couple of topics here about inflation heating up as energy costs continue to rise and work from home being here to stay. And I want to touch on both of those. But then if it's all right with you, because I know, like the best financial professionals do, you really stay on top of everything going on. And obviously, hot news this week. Want to touch on some SpaceX before we let you go here today. So starting off with the inflation, what's going on in that market right now?
So like I've been saying publicly for a while now is that without a doubt, the war in Iran has led to higher oil prices, therefore higher gas, heating oil, all of that. And so that feeds down into so many different areas just because if you're a company and you have trucks that are driving and you're spending more on gas, your margins are going to be hit. So inflation has creeped up during the time of the war, and I just said, consistently, I think this is temporary. We will wake up, someday, and things will be announced that it's coming to an end. So that's what's going on. Mm-hmm. Price of oil has come way down. Therefore, the price of gas will come down. But in the last reported inflation report for the month of May, that's our most recent data. It clearly showed that the inflation number had gone higher over the last year. However, when you dig into the numbers, you'll see that the core number, which excludes food and energy, most economists exclude it because it's so volatile, and it said that most of the other core components of inflation had actually cooled a little bit. So I don't have a crystal ball, Sam, but I kind of think that inflation has peaked for the year, and that hopefully it'll continue to come down for the remainder of the year.
I get the sense that it's peaked for the year, but one thing maybe we should caution viewers on, perhaps I'm wrong about this, is I tend to think that the June numbers, when we get them, may be as high or a little bit higher than May. Like, it's a trailing indicator, so you're a couple of months behind, essentially, and that might have been the peak this past month.
Yeah, that is very possible, depending on when the data is taken. Even if the number for June is higher, I still feel, seem to think that it's peaked. It's coming down throughout the remainder of the year, and that's going to help businesses of all types because their profit margins will begin to expand again, and people will start feeling better about their pocketbooks.
Makes a huge difference, especially as we head into the holiday shopping and buying season, right?
Sure does. Absolutely does. If people have more money to spend and they want to spend in the holiday season, they absolutely will.
Fantastic. All right. Next topic here, real quick. Work from home is here to stay. I deal with this in the Maricopa Recorder's office because we have a lot of people who they were work from home when we came into the office, and we kind of did a hybrid and said you could take 2 days of work from home per week. We haven't gotten rid of that because it's hard to hire if you're not offering that flexibility, especially for lower paying jobs. How's it working for companies now? Because there's a lot of back and forth on this.
Absolutely, there is. I think you're right in that depending on whose research you're looking at, it will tell you that people are less productive at home, and when they get back in the office, they're more likely to be promoted. They're more likely to advance in the company. There's other studies that say that they're just as productive. Jamie Dimon, head of JP Morgan Chase, said earlier this year to the JP Morgan employees, get yourself back to work now. I want you in the office 5 days out of the week. And so that was kind of an outlier. There have been some other companies that have done that. I tend to agree with the sentiment with which he's talking, which is that if you're in the office, you're going to be very productive. And you're building relationships with your coworkers, which can lead to advancements and promotions and things like that. So I know that people don't Some people don't want to go back to work, and a hybrid scenario seems to be maybe where we're headed, where people work from home 1 to 2 days a week, but they work actually in the office for the rest of the time. I think if you can't get them back in the office full time, that hybrid is probably the best solution that we're going to go with going forward. But I do think that we are more productive when we're in the office.
Well, not only more productive, I think you hit on something you were saying a moment ago, because I've seen this up close, right? The people who are working from home will get their basic work done. We don't really have a problem with that. They will get their basic work done. But they're not contributing anything outside of essentially checking those boxes, right?
Right.
Whereas that same person, when they're in the office, sooner or later they have an idea or some contribution to make in excess of checking those boxes, and that's the difference.
I think you're right there. So when I started in this business a long time ago, my approach at that time was, I'm going to be the first in the office. I'm going to be the last to leave. And so my intent wasn't to impress my boss, even though that did happen. My intent was, I'm going to work harder than anybody else around me. And that shone through. And so I think that's one of the benefits that you get from showing up and working in the office, is that the people that are in the position to promote, give advancements, give raises, things like that, they see somebody in the office working really hard. They're more likely to take that person, help them move forward in the company. And that's hard to do when you're working from home.
Well, and you have a relationship with that person, right? The people that are in our office every day, I have a real relationship with. The ones who are hybrid, I have a lesser relationship with. And we've got a handful who, due to accommodations, are at home, work from home. I have essentially no relationship with them. I see them on a Zoom here and there, but that is not building a constructive work relationship.
Absolutely. You're making my point is that, and this is primarily a younger generation type thing where they want this work-life balance that they have envisioned. I get that. And so, but I do think if you're serious about your career, I'd probably be in the office more than out of the office.
Yeah, 100%. Absolutely true. Okay, last thing, Gary, before we let you go, because obviously this has been huge news and everyone's talking about it right now. SpaceX just had its IPO. What do you see there? Because it's an enormous valuation that it's coming out with. And lots of predictions of collapse on one side and explosive growth on the other. What is your take on the next 5 and 10 years for SpaceX?
Okay, so I'm not going to give any stop picks in terms of saying someone should go out.
No. I'm looking at your analysis of this company in terms of its economic growth as an industry.
So I like the industry, which is space, and so SpaceX isn't the only company in this area, but they're clearly the biggest. And from my perspective, it seems as if the most dynamic part of this business is what's called Starlink. And so it's not the missiles, it's actually Starlink. And that's all of these satellites that Elon Musk has put out in space. Some of them that are parked over Iran now, some have been parked over Ukraine, which allow the residents who don't have internet access to be able to have limited access to either make phone calls or make texts. But there is economies of scale, and if this continues, I think it could put some threat towards your typical telecommunications companies that play in this same area. So I think that the Starlink part of it is really interesting. He also has a generative AI part of the business, and so those two components I find fascinating. And so where it's going to go from here, no idea, other than the IPO was really widely accepted, not just on the institutional level that have been in the investment privately for years, but private investors, individuals like you and me, Sam, they participated as well. My firm got shares in the IPO to give to our clients, which we did. And so all in all, I thought this was a really well-received IPO. And, you have to watch the earnings, which will start coming out. So I would say that if someone is looking to get into SpaceX, why don't you follow the stock for a while, and see what the earnings reports start to look like, and then make your assessment at that point.
Well, and you often and generally recommend some ETFs, mutual funds, other vehicles that spread out and reduce your risk, and there are a lot of those that have or are adding SpaceX that people could get into as a way to enjoy the potential but mitigate the risk.
Yeah, I think that if someone wants to eliminate the single stock risk, and anyone that's been in stocks knows that once in a while the stock that they own, they wake up and they hear some news announcements about the company, and the stock can either be way up or way down. And if you want to avoid that volatility, using ETFs, exchange traded funds, or index funds are a great way to eliminate that.
Absolutely. Gary, how do folks get in touch with you and potentially reach out and engage your services and help them secure that financial future for themselves and their family?
And so would love to chat with them. We do this all the time. They can call us on the phone number of 801-787-0342. That's 801-787-0342, or our website, which is gigicapital.com, GYGI capital.com.
Gary Gigi, always a pleasure having you on the program. Thank you so much for joining us once again, and as always, for the fantastic advice.
Have a good weekend, guys. Thanks very much.
You as well. All right. Jeremy, before we wrap up here, I got a soul-crushing confession I have to make.
I didn't know if you were going to do it, but yeah, let's hear it.
I'm doing it. Listen, many of our listeners may know that I was born and raised in Boston. All right. For those who are not born and raised in Boston, there are two religions, or at least when I grew up, there's two religions essentially in Boston. There was Christians, and there's our sports teams. Yep. Okay. And the devil in the sports team version of religion are the teams from New York. They are the devil. The Yankees, the evil empire, the Mets,
the Giants,
the Jets, the Knicks, the Nets. We hate them all. So I have to make a terrible admission here. I rooted for the Knicks.
Oh.
I was rooting for the Knicks.
Hear that, Boston?
I know. I don't know if I still have my Boston card at this point.
Boston's disowned you.
Well, okay, but here's the thing, Jeremy, you're a sports guy too. Brennan, you like this stuff. I mean, so they were likable.
They're very Brunson is very
likable.
likable.
Brunson and Josh Hart are fantastic. The jokes, the way the team's going back and forth. Even Karl Anthony Towns, who was kind of a jerk in Minnesota by all appearances, maybe not to his teammates and people who knew him, but outwardly, suddenly this guy's one of the most lovable, likable guys in the NBA. And it helps that it's the San Antonio Spurs, because I live in Arizona and we've not liked the Spurs for a long time here. That is what it is. But
Victor has kind of become a villain after this too now.
I know. He started that series as the Wembanyama Saint and ended it as the Wembanyama Devil.
Yeah, a darling to, I don't know what we got now.
No, this is painful. I mean, honestly, Jeremy, who are you? Come on. Who were you rooting for?
The Knicks, they are.
Brennan?
The
good
Knicks.
vibes.
You had to.
Oh,
you had to.
did.
It's history. It's culture there.
All right.
They've been waiting 53 years.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't care about that. They can wait 153 years. They can wait 353 years,
There
and it
we
would have
go.
been fine by me.
All right, you're back.
All right. Yeah, I feel better now. All right, folks. That's it. That's a wrap. Thank you so much. We love having you join us. For everyone, fantastic guests today. Absolutely fantastic guests. We always love having all of these folks on the program. Breaking Battlegrounds will be back on the air next week. Stay tuned. Stay in touch. Download. 5-star. Share. get this content out there, because that helps us keep bringing it to you every single week. And we got tons more stuff coming online right now. We've got tons of writers on Substack. B is doing these really great little segments you can catch on all our social media. You want to check those out. So don't miss all the good stuff. Sign up, share, subscribe, 5-star it. See you next week.